Wait, what? I exclaimed, whipping my head around to face my wife. Joyce. What did you just say? I asked, unable to believe my ears. Jake, I know you're probably going to be upset, but I'm not happy right now, and I'm considering a trial separation for us. I need some time to clear my head and figure out what I want. Joyce explained to me as I stood on the deck, grilling steaks. When were you planning on telling me this, Joyce, or were you just going to leave a note on my pillow tonight? I retorted, my voice escalating more than it should have. Don't raise your voice, Jake. I don't want Marty overhearing our conversation, she cautioned, referring to our 6-year-old son. I knew you'd react like this, which is why I wanted to wait until tonight to discuss it. So, essentially, you've already made up your mind to leave. Are you planning on telling Marty yourself, or should I break the news after you're gone? I said, dripping with sarcasm. I'll tell him tonight before bed. And remember, this isn't necessarily permanent, she reassured me. Right, you're moving in with your friend Leslie. I should have seen this coming, I snapped, my anger escalating. I'll draw up the paperwork tomorrow. You can sign it, and I'll file it with the court by Wednesday. Joyce. What paperwork? Joyce questioned. Well, if you're leaving, I want it to be a legal separation. That way, if you don't return, it will automatically convert to a divorce decree. We won't have to go through the hassle twice, I explained, my frustration evident. I don't want a divorce, Jake, just some time to myself to sort things out, that's all, Joyce replied calmly. That's bullshit, Joyce, I retorted sharply. I've been asking you to talk to me for the past 4 months, but you've been too wrapped up with Leslie and your new friends to spare a moment. And now you want to move in with Leslie, your new best friend, so you can do whatever you've been itching to do for the past 6 months, I yelled, my frustration boiling over. Well, you're not going to do it with my blessing, and I refuse to stand by and be made a fool of by you or anyone else, I said, slamming the grill top down. This wasn't how Joyce had envisioned the conversation going. She knew Jake would be upset, but she had hoped to persuade him that this could be a growth opportunity for both of them. Instead, it had blown up in her face. Jake, please, Joyce pleaded, but he stormed off in a huff, leaving her alone at the grill. She removed the steaks, placing them on the counter, then went in search of him. She found Jake upstairs in their bedroom, furiously tossing all her belongings into the spare room. Take your belongings and get out of here. I've had enough, I yelled in frustration. I'll have the divorce papers sent to your office. You can sign them and return them to Michael, the lawyer I've been using for the past 6 years. Don't worry about Marty. I'll take him out for dinner so he doesn't have to witness his mother leaving, I added, grabbing my coat and my son before heading out to the car. Leslie, it's Joyce, she began on the phone, her voice starting to crack. Jake didn't handle it well at all. He's threatening me with divorce. I told you he wouldn't take it lightly, but don't worry, he'll come around soon, Leslie reassured her. In a few weeks, he'll be begging for you to come back, and then you'll have the upper hand. I hope you're right, Leslie, because right now he's ready to kick me out and file for divorce, Joyce admitted. I need some time away, but I don't want to end our marriage. I'll come over and help you pack, Leslie offered. The sooner you're on your own, away from him, the sooner you can figure out what you truly want. With Leslie's assistance, Joyce swiftly packed up most of her belongings and left the house before Jake and Marty returned. I had seen this coming for a while. Joyce and I were both accountants and had met 8 years ago, while auditing a company that had gone bankrupt. We were representing different banks with stakes in the failed company. Over the course of the audit, we grew close, enjoying lunches and dinners together every night. By the end of the week, we realized we had developed strong feelings for each other. Joyce was 6.5 feet tall, with brown hair and weighed about 175 pounds. She had a pretty face, but was a little overweight. Jake was 6 and 8 feet tall, weighed about 195 pounds, and at 22 he already had a pretty big belly from overeating every day. These two weirdos were made for each other. 4 months after tying the knot, Joyce found herself expecting, and 8 months later, she was deep into a challenging pregnancy. Bedridden for the last 5 months, she gained a significant amount of weight, tipping the scales at almost 250 pounds by the time Marty arrived. Throughout it all, I never uttered a word of complaint. My love for her transcended any physical changes. We were a contented family, until one day when Joyce overheard a conversation between two of her coworkers. "She's so attractive," one remarked. "It's a shame she's as large as a house. I wonder if she gets her clothes custom-made at Omar, the tent-maker's dress shop," she joked. While they might have found it amusing, Joyce was deeply hurt. In tears, she sought solace in the bathroom where Leslie found her. "Are you okay, Joyce?" she asked, concerned. "Everyone thinks I'm a fat pig," Joyce confessed through sobs. "If they only knew how hard I've struggled to lose weight, they wouldn't be so cruel." "Listen, all you need is to commit to a good diet and join a gym," Leslie encouraged. "You're a beautiful woman underneath all that, but you need to make up your mind and take action." And so Joyce made the decision to change. Given my connection to the gym through my accounting work, we secured a fantastic membership deal and joined the following week. With the gym offering child care services, we were able to bring Marty with us after work, allowing us both to focus on our fitness goals. Joyce was on a relentless mission, hitting the gym 6 days a week, while I struggled to make it 3 nights. When her efforts didn't yield immediate results, she sought a doctor's help and obtained a prescription for diet pills. Though I wasn't entirely comfortable with it, Joyce was determined to shed the weight. 8 months later, Joyce had transformed, slimming down to a stout 125 pounds. With her newfound confidence, she splurged on a whole new wardrobe, earning compliments from everyone, including her male colleagues. However, the attention she received sparked trouble. At Joyce's company Christmas party, things took a turn for the worse. She wore a revealing dress and found herself the center of attention, particularly from her male coworkers. Reveling in the admiration, Joyce indulged in multiple kisses under the mistletoe, unaware of the hands that roamed freely over her body. Concerned, I intervened, insisting it was time to leave. Reluctantly, Joyce complied, but not without causing a scene. "Joyce, I'm leaving right now, with or without you," I finally asserted, sensing her anger. As we made our way home, tensions escalated into a heated argument. "Tonight, you behaved recklessly, letting those men paw at you while you did nothing to stop them," I exclaimed, frustrated by her obliviousness to the situation. "It was just harmless fun, nothing serious," Joyce insisted. "Not from my perspective," I countered. "How would you feel if I were all over some other woman, kissing and groping her?" I questioned, realizing she was too intoxicated to comprehend. That night, Joyce fell ill, fortunately removing her new dress before vomiting. The following morning, she looked worse for wear and apologized, promising it wouldn't recur. Yet it did, just not in my presence. Subsequently, Joyce began frequenting Tony's for girls' night out after work on Wednesdays. Initially, she returned home by 6:30, but as time passed, her outings extended to 7:30 and eventually close to 9 o'clock p.m. By then, Marty was asleep, and my patience wore thin. In our early marriage, we spent ample time in bed, exploring each other. Now, it seemed a weekly occurrence, if that. One thing was certain. When Joyce returned home on Wednesday nights, she was indisputably in the mood. And tonight was no different. Initially, neither of us had much experience, and we approached intimacy cautiously. Over time, we learned each other's preferences and incorporated new techniques. However, every week when Joyce returned home, she seemed eager to try something novel and adventurous, leaving me to wonder where she got such ideas. We had a great time in bed that day. "Dan, I really needed that," she told me. "But I think I'm going to be sore for a week," she added with a laugh, rolling over onto her back. I moved closer, kissed her on the lips, and expressed my happiness at being married to her. It had been like that before, until this week. Upon returning home after dinner with Marty, I found the house empty. That woman, Leslie, I muttered to myself. Ever since Joyce shed those pounds, Leslie's been pushing her into all sorts of things. No wonder her husband left her. She's nothing but trouble, and now she's influencing my wife too. I got Marty ready for bed, tucked him in, and read him a story. When he asked about his mother, I simply told him, "Mommy's away visiting and will be back in a couple of days," though I didn't believe it myself. Heading downstairs, I dialed my mom and filled her in. "Mom, can you look after Marty during the day until I find a permanent solution?" I requested. "Honey, Joyce will snap out of it and be back by the end of the week. You know her. She can't bear to be away from Marty for long," Mom reassured me. "I'll be there before you leave for work to watch him." I hope she was right, but deep down, I wasn't as confident as my mom. On Monday, I contacted Michael and told him that Joyce had left me. I want to make sure I have full protection, including permanent custody of Marty. I want the agreement to clearly state that if either of us does something that a married spouse should not do, the other will get 65% of the entire estate. I think she wants to cheat on me, and I want to confirm that. I told Michael. I want the agreement to last 60 days, after which it will become a divorce decree. "And can you do that by tomorrow?" I asked. "Isn't this a bit premature, Jake? She just left, and you're already considering divorce papers," Michael questioned. "Joyce has likely been planning this for some time, and perhaps this will make her reconsider. If not, I can't risk losing everything I've worked for just because she wants to explore an affair," I explained. "All right, Jake, I'll handle it today and arrange for her to be served at work tomorrow." "Anything else?" Michael asked. "Nothing else comes to mind at the moment. I just need to make it clear to her what's at stake. Also, Michael, I'll need 2 other agreements drawn up, but those can wait. I'll fax you the details later this week," I concluded. The following Tuesday, Joyce arrived at work feeling somewhat down. It was the longest she had been away from Marty and Jake in 8 years. Returning from lunch, she was informed that a man was waiting in her office. "Joyce Spencer?" he inquired. "Yes, I'm Joyce. What can I do for you?" she replied. "You have been served," he stated, handing her a manila envelope. For the next half hour, Joyce meticulously reviewed the conditions and property divisions outlined in the separation decree, although it read more like actual divorce paperwork. It specified that Jake would have temporary but full custody of Marty, while Joyce would be granted visitation with reasonable notice. By the time she finished reading, she felt more hurt than angry. "I've only been gone for 2 days, and Jake's already given up on our marriage," she muttered to herself. Attempting to reach Jake proved futile. His secretary informed her he was out for the day, and his cell phone went straight to voicemail. Unbeknownst to her, Jake was at home changing the locks, managing their finances, and removing Joyce's name from his insurance, and 401k. By 4 o'clock, I had wrapped up my tasks and switched on my cell phone. "Damn," I muttered to myself, noticing 12 missed calls from Joyce. Deleting them all, I proceeded to have dinner with Marty at my mother's house, where I shared what I had done. "Joyce is going to be furious, Jake. I know I would be in her shoes. How far do you plan to take this?" my mother inquired. "All the way, Mom," I responded firmly. "I can't salvage this marriage alone, especially since Joyce refuses to listen to reason. So I've raised the stakes. She initiated this mess, but I'll be the one to end it if I discover she's been unfaithful. I used to trust her, but right now, I wouldn't believe a word she says. Right now, I'm prioritizing the well-being of my son and myself. If we reconcile, that's great. If not, I'll be holding all the cards. Son, I've never seen this side of you. Remind me never to get on your bad side," my mother remarked with a laugh. Meanwhile, Joyce arrived at her house and attempted to use her key. "What the hell?" she muttered upon discovering the new lock. Damn him. Dialing Jake's number once more, she encountered the same voicemail prompt and left another message. Reviewing my checklist, I reassured myself that everything was now in place. All I can do is wait, I thought. Wednesday morning found Joyce at Jake's office. My credit cards won't work, and they told me I no longer have insurance when I tried to pick up my prescription on the way to work. Do you hate me that much, Jake? She questioned. Just covering my bases, Joyce. Remember, you walked out on me. I'll cover all household expenses and Marty's needs, but you'll have to manage your own finances from now on. That way, we won't have any financial disputes, Jake explained calmly. Jake, you're letting this spiral out of control, Joyce shouted, frustration evident in her tone. I just needed some time to myself, that's all. Leaning over my desk, I adopted a serious and deadpan expression. Joyce, do you see the word stupid tattooed across my forehead? I may not be the most astute guy, but I wasn't born yesterday. Leslie has turned your head so much that you can't seem to find your way. You think you can act like you're single again without consequences. Think again. The moment I discover you've broken your marital vows, it's over. Hell, you probably already have, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation, I stated firmly before sinking back into my chair. Joyce was taken aback and quickly grew defensive. You can't treat me like a child. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, so screw you, she spat back. Well, that hasn't been the case much in the last 6 months either, but I guess you're getting all the attention you can handle now on the side, I retorted just loud enough for Joyce to hear. With that, she stormed out. I knew she hadn't gone all the way yet, but she had come close. You see, I had started having her followed on Wednesdays about a month ago. There had been a lot of flirting and physical contact, but it hadn't gone any further. I wanted to make sure Joyce understood the consequences of cheating on me, especially with the temptation of living with Leslie. However, my life was beginning to unravel. The initial 2 weeks proved challenging. Joyce made a point to visit Marty, yet our interactions were limited to mere exchanges. Despite continuing to have her followed, there were no significant developments. She maintained her outings with Leslie and her friends, extending them from just Wednesdays to at least 4 nights a week. Looks like someone is trying to make up for lost time, I muttered to myself while reviewing the report. Nonetheless, I managed to find a nanny for Marty, a recent college graduate named Alice, who had struggled to secure full-time employment. Alice, 23 years old, blonde and standing at about 5'9", eagerly accepted the nanny position after seeing my aunt. Growing up in a large family, she was well versed in caring for and handling young boys, having 2 younger brothers of her own. We quickly reached an agreement on pay and hours, and she moved in the following day. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, Alice worked as a waitress at a mid-priced family restaurant, joining us for dinner on the other evenings. Over time, Marty grew comfortable with Alice, particularly enjoying her bedtime reading sessions. Alice, I can't thank you enough for going above and beyond for Marty. With his mother temporarily out of the picture, stability is crucial for him, I expressed, offering the best smile I could muster. I know about your situation with your wife. Your mother filled me in on all the details in case Joyce came by and tried to take him, Alice disclosed. I can't believe she would just walk out on you like that. I've only known you for a short time, but you're one of the most caring men I've ever met, and it's clear you love Marty dearly. I suppose Joyce lost sight of what truly matters and let others convince her that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, I remarked. Well, it'll all be settled one way or another in 40 days, and frankly, it can't come soon enough for me. Little did I know, my life was about to take a dramatic turn, and chaos would ensue in less than a week. You see, I'm a silent partner at the accounting firm where I work. Over the past 2 years, I've brought in a significant amount of new business, leading the owners to make me a 15% partner. I requested that this information be kept confidential because I preferred not to be recognized as one of the owners. This allowed me to gain insights into the company's operations and gauge employee sentiments more authentically. My latest achievement involved securing a meeting with an overseas garment manufacturer with plants in 5 Asian countries. I had initially met the owners at a party about a year ago and pitched them a few ideas, which impressed them enough to schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss our firm's potential involvement. Jake, I admire the personalized approach your firm brings to its work. Each plant currently operates independently, and I need someone to establish a unified system across all facilities so we can manage them centrally from our overseas office, one of the prospective owners expressed during our discussion. While they were initially disappointed that I wouldn't be directly overseeing the overseas operation, I reassured them that I would personally oversee every aspect to ensure flawless execution. With the signed contract and a handshake, celebrations commenced. After 9 months of hard work on this account, I had hoped to return home to Joyce with the good news. I envisioned treating her to a lavish dinner, followed by an intimate evening together. However, upon arriving home, I found the house empty and my heart shattered. Alice arrived with Marty 20 minutes later, carrying Chinese takeout. I was bursting with excitement and needed to share my great news, so I confided in Alice. "Forget about dinner plans. We're all going out tonight to celebrate," I informed her. "Put on your finest attire because we're going to paint the town red." My bosses had arranged reservations at the town's finest restaurant for 8 p.m. and had organized a limo to pick us up at 7:30 p.m. So time was of the essence. After shaving, showering, and dressing up, I decided to assist Alice in getting Marty ready, allowing her more time to prepare. By 7:15 p.m., both Marty and I were dressed and eager to go. That's when I spotted Alice descending the stairs. "I hope you don't mind. I didn't have anything fancy to wear, so I found one of your white dresses that sort of fits," she explained, slightly self-conscious. The dress hugged her figure like a glove, but was a tad short due to her taller stature. "Do you think it looks okay?" "You look stunning, Alice," I responded, my eyes widening in admiration as the doorbell chimed. With that, the 3 of us embarked on our journey, boarding the waiting limousine, just as Joyce happened to be driving down our street. "What in the world?" Joyce muttered in disbelief as she observed them piling into the stretch limo. "I wonder what's happening," she pondered, deciding to follow them. Upon witnessing them enter the restaurant, she seethed with anger. "That jerk. He claims we can't afford to dine at such an establishment, yet he's treating them to a lavish night out. And whom on earth is wearing my dress?" The evening turned out to be wonderful. I was the center of attention, and we indulged in sumptuous food and drinks. Eventually, Alice informed me that it was time to depart as Marty was growing tired, well past his bedtime. "You're absolutely right. We should head home before Marty becomes impossible to wake up for school tomorrow." I expressed my gratitude to everyone for the dinner, but as they shook my hand, their gazes seemed to linger on Alice, not just the men. Alice looked stunning tonight, and I couldn't help but notice the envious glances from the other women. They must have heard the tale of Joyce's departure to find herself, and now they were convinced that I wasted no time in finding a replacement. The ride home was silent as Marty drifted off to sleep as soon as we entered the limo. I carried him upstairs, tucked him in, and planted a kiss on his forehead before bidding him good night. Descending back downstairs, still clad in my tuxedo, I found Alice savoring a glass of wine at the kitchen table. "I want to thank you for tonight. You didn't have to take me along," she said with a warm smile. "How could I have left you here alone tonight? Besides, I genuinely enjoy your company, Alice," I replied, pouring myself a glass of wine. "I hope it wasn't too dull for you, being surrounded by a bunch of accountants." "On the contrary, I found it quite fascinating. I never realized how interesting your job is, and everyone seems to hold you in high regard, myself included," she said with a hint of a smile. "You've made me feel like part of your family, even though I'm just the nanny." As much as I desired to have Alice in my bedroom, I reminded myself that I was still married and committed to remaining faithful to Joyce. Tonight was indeed magical, and I have certain thoughts swirling in my mind about what I'd like to do, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen tonight. I admitted. Perhaps if circumstances were different, but they're not, so I'll settle for a cold shower and an early night, I told Alice, planting a kiss on her cheek as she hugged me. At 2 a.m, I felt Alice slip into my bed beside me. Her warmth signaled her nakedness, and before I could speak, she gently placed a finger on my lips. I know we can't do anything tonight. I just want to be close to you. That's all, she whispered as she spooned me. The next morning, I awoke to find myself alone in bed. Downstairs, Alice was dressed and cooking breakfast for the three of us, and not a word was exchanged between us. Meanwhile, Joyce was furious. Here I am, trying to figure out my life with Jake, and he's already replaced me with some floozy. She raged, slamming her hand on the desk. Her mistake was confiding in Leslie, who encouraged her to celebrate her newfound freedom. Despite her reluctance to party, she joined Leslie at Tony's, where they encountered a group of handsome men vying for their attention. While most of their group left after a few drinks, Joyce and Leslie remained. One of the men caught Leslie's interest, while Joyce found herself drawn to another. He was attractive, with a physique akin to a Greek god, and the chemistry between them was palpable. As they danced, his hands explored her body, and despite her inner conflict, Joyce didn't resist his advances. She allowed him to kiss her and lead her to a secluded corner of the dance floor, where things escalated further. However, she failed to stop him when his hands wandered up her dress, a decision she would soon regret, especially as she discovered that Jake had hired a private investigator to document the entire encounter. The four of them ended up at Leslie's place, where Joyce found herself naked and lying on the bed with him. However, in a moment of clarity, she realized she couldn't go through with it. I can't do this. I'm still married, and despite everything, I still love my husband, she asserted, disregarding his objections. He left her alone, and Joyce took a cold shower. I need to get my head and ass together, she resolved the next morning. But events beyond her control were already beginning to reshape her life, and not for the better. On my computer screen, I saw the pictures of Joyce, culminating in the image of the four of them entering Leslie's apartment. I promptly emailed them to my attorney, instructing him to prepare the paperwork, but to hold off until Monday. I suppose she's made her decision, I said with a heavy heart, as I had hoped to reconcile with Joyce, but it seemed unlikely now. The next day, I informed my bosses that I would personally handle the Asian project. I need to take some time away to clear my head and sort out my life, I explained. Can you be ready to leave by the 12th for the project startup? They asked. Give me a couple of days to finalize my affairs and arrange for an apartment so I have a place to send my belongings, I requested. I have a few more conversations to have today, but if all goes as planned, I'll be prepared. That afternoon, I delegated my remaining tasks to my staff, ensuring they were prepared to handle everything in my absence. I drafted paperwork to grant my mother power of attorney and instructed Michael to serve papers on Joyce the following Monday. Same amount of notice that she gave me, I muttered sadly. Returning home that evening, I felt a wave of melancholy wash over me as I walked into a house that would no longer be mine upon my return from overseas. Joyce and I had chosen it together, and it held countless cherished memories, all of which would soon be just that, memories. Dinner was unusually quiet, and Alice sensed my somber mood. Is everything okay, Jake? She asked tentatively. It's not you, Alice. I just have a lot on my mind. We'll talk after Marty goes to bed, I assured her. By 10 o'clock, with the house silent, Alice broached the subject. What's bothering you, Jake? If it's about the other night, I'm really sorry, and I promise it won't happen again, she offered earnestly. It's not about that, I began. Remember the company party a couple of weeks ago? Well, I've decided to handle the overseas work myself, and Marty and I will be leaving early Monday morning, I explained. And I have an important question for you, I added, noticing tears welling up in Alice's eyes. Would you like to come with us? Her expression transformed from sorrow to delight. Absolutely, she exclaimed, rushing into my embrace. Do you have an updated passport, Alice? I inquired. I had it renewed last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends, she confirmed with a smile. Then it's settled. You'll need to have everything packed by Saturday, because they're shipping out all our belongings ahead of time. Leave just enough clothes for the rest of the weekend and Monday's travel attire. You can inform your family and friends, but I don't want Joyce to know until we're in the air. It might not be entirely legal to just take Marty with us and leave, but I'm doing it anyway. I'll handle any questions when we return, I instructed Alice. That evening, I sat down with my mother and laid out the entire plan, including giving her my power of attorney. Things will likely hit the fan Monday afternoon with Joyce, but I still want you to put the house up for sale next week. Michael will send you a copy of the papers I'm serving to Joyce, and if she has any questions, just direct her to Michael, I explained. Are you sure this is what you want, Jake? Have you considered trying to work things out with her? My mom inquired. She's made her decision, and now she can live with the consequences, I affirmed. And Alice, you're taking her with you. My mom pressed for the final piece of information. I'm not entirely certain where we're headed, but she brings me joy and keeps me grounded. Beyond that, I may have developed genuine feelings for her, and that's all I'm going to disclose. We'll be over Sunday night so you can say goodbye to Marty, I informed her firmly. On Monday, Joyce desperately tried to reach Jake, only to be informed by his workplace that he was on a special project outside the office. Frustrated, she attempted his cell phone to no avail. Joyce Spencer, a man approached her. He nodded, and he handed her an envelope. You have been served, he said solemnly. With a mixture of curiosity and dread, Joyce tore into the envelope. Inside was a brief note from Jake, concluding with, I guess I've made my decision. Hope you have a great life. But it was the photos enclosed that made her blood run cold. Oh no, she muttered, her heart sinking as she flipped through the damning images. How did he get these? She wondered. He must have had me followed, she concluded, a mixture of anger and panic swirling within her. As she processed the shocking contents, she received another blow. News from Jake's mother that he and Marty had left on a 4 to 5 month overseas project. Gone. What do you mean gone? Joyce's voice trembled with disbelief. Jake is on a long-term project abroad, and he took Marty with him, Jake's mother explained calmly. I won't stand for this. He can't just take Marty away from me, especially out of the country, Joyce protested vehemently. I'll fight him in court. He'll pay for this, she vowed, her voice rising with fury. Joyce, remember that Jake has full custody of Marty now. You relinquished that right when you left to find yourself. To say you messed up big time would be an understatement. You had a wonderful marriage, but it seems you wanted more. And now you're left with nothing, Jake's mother replied firmly. Tears streaming down her face, Joyce pleaded. I need to talk to him, to explain that it's not what it looks like. I still love him, and I never slept with anyone else. He has to believe me. Joyce, I saw the pictures, and if my husband were alive and doing what you've done, I'd divorce him too, Jake's mother replied firmly. If I were you, I'd write him a letter explaining everything you need to. I'll make sure he gets it. In the meantime, you should get a lawyer. Taking her advice, Joyce laid out her case. She highlighted the role alcohol played and emphasized that she stopped it before anything went too far. She expressed her continued love for Jake and her willingness to wait for him to come back to her. Jake's response was blunt and direct. Joyce, you haven't been a wife to me since you lost all that weight last year, he wrote. It felt like you were suddenly too good for me, basking in the attention of other men. When you finally came home on Wednesday nights, you were only interested in having a good time in bed, not in making love to your husband. It seems I no longer excite you, so now you and Leslie can do whatever you want and be with whomever you want. I warned you that Leslie would eventually tear us apart, but you didn't listen. Jake's letter stated bluntly, Marty, Alice, and I are starting anew, based on love and trust. You can visit Marty anytime you want. Just get a camera modem for your computer, and I'll set it up. Sign the papers because Mom is putting the house up for sale this week. There's no chance we'll ever reconcile, so don't hold on to false hope that I'll change my mind. I hope you found what you were looking for, Joyce, and are happy. I never wanted it to end like this. Reading Jake's words, Joyce realized he was right. She had been foolish to heed the advice of her so-called good friends who were all divorced themselves. Perhaps they didn't have the best judgment after all. She resolved to fight it until she received Jake's letter, after which she finally signed the papers. Ironically, 6 months later, Joyce found herself back at her starting weight of 175 pounds, but without Jake. Despite the challenges, Jake found contentment in his new life abroad. Overcoming the language barrier at work proved to be challenging, but manageable. Marty was adapting well, gradually picking up words and enjoying his interactions with other children. Alice, meanwhile, took charge of caring for Marty and organizing their free time, creating lists of places to visit and activities to enjoy. I still recall that night vividly, months ago. It was shortly after we arrived in the country, and we were all feeling a bit stressed. Marty resisted bedtime, my work program hit some bumps, and Alice seemed overwhelmed. She came into the den and planted a kiss on the back of my neck, instantly bringing the smile to my face. Taking my hand, she led me into her bedroom, where a single candle flickered on each side of our bed. We undressed each other and slipped under the covers. Let's just say that night, it felt like heaven and earth merged into one. 5 months later, my mom greeted us at the airport with a beaming smile, particularly delighted to see Marty. During the ride home, she couldn't help but notice Alice's serene expression. "How far along are you?" she asked Alice, who seemed a bit surprised by the question. 3 months. "How did you know?" Alice responded, "You both looked too happy, like the cat that got the cream," my mom remarked. 2 weeks later, we tied the knot, and 6 months after that, Mia came into the world. When Alice mentioned wanting to join a gym to shed her baby weight, my reaction was priceless. 2 days later, I surprised her with the news that I'd arranged for a personal trainer, and she'd have all the necessary equipment. No need to go through all that hassle again, I thought to myself, relieved. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.